Well, good day, everyone. This is John Mahar speaking. It's 5 after the hour, so we're going to get started. I'd like to begin by introducing our participants today. So once again, my name is John. I'm with Sparkrock. I'm going to be moderating the session this afternoon. I'm joined by Janice Gerbrandt. She is with Rehoboth. She has been a customer of Sparkrock now for, Janice, gee, I want to say 6 years, 7 years. Yep,
Yeah.
perfect. Yep. So she's got a lot of insight that she's going to share around our topic. So what we wanted to really focus on today was time entry and scheduling for nonprofits. We all know that for a lot of organizations, this is a key area of their responsibility to their constituents, and certainly it's a key part of how you actually spend the money that you're being granted or being funded for. And so it's an important element of any good integrated system. And with that in mind, I'll introduce our other participant, Sherry Hashimoto. She's also with Sparkrock. So we're going to spend a little bit of time, most of our time, with Janice. She's going to talk about some of her experiences with the application, with the product Sparkrock 365. And then we thought we'd take 10 minutes of everyone's time just to have them have a sense of what Sparkrock 365 looks like and some of the things that it can do from a functional perspective that Janice is going to touch on. And we've asked Sherry to take you through that. So with that in mind, I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna start, Janice. Perhaps if you don't mind, for everyone's benefit, can you talk a little bit about how you found Sparkrock, how long you've been with us, and just broadly speaking, some of the experiences you've had so far.
Yeah, thanks, John. So Rehoboth started looking in 2015 for a provider that would be able to give us an integrated experience. And we initially started looking because we wanted somebody to have a scheduling component for that. And so the scheduling was really the key. But then the integration was huge also because we had 3 different systems that we were trying to have talk to each other and they didn't. And so it was difficult for us to get the data out of the system in a concise, clear manner. And so then we started looking for a system that would give us that. So in 2016, after doing some research and interviewing a whole bunch of different companies, we landed on Sparkrock. And for the biggest reason that they were the only one who was able to give us the scheduling, the other components, as well as the integration between the 3 payroll, HR, and finance components. It was huge for us. We had our finance manager at the time pulling Excel reports, putting it into a pivot table, then using VLOOKUPs to change stuff. And it was hours and hours of work that she was spending to give financial reports to the board, to our funders, such like that. So with moving to Sparkrock in 2016, we were on the nav version of Sparkrock. And it worked well. We were cloud-based at that point. We started right off in the cloud, which gave us that exposure that we always had access. We didn't have to worry about dealing with the IT component in-house. And so we did decide right from the beginning to be cloud-based. But then we had spoken to Sparkrock, the leadership there, about the fact of this 365 component. So we were doing fine with NAV 2016. We were happy with it. It gave us most of the things we wanted. Some processes didn't work for us in 2016, but were going to be available in 365 because that's what that system could do for us. So like I said, we spoke to the leadership of Sparkrock and we talked about this conversion to 365. And it was going to help us to be changing with the times. So we thought with what Microsoft was doing to keep their platform available for employees, we already were on Microsoft for everything else. So it made sense to us to move to Microsoft for this as well. The cloud and being web-based and server-based, or not being server-based, but being web-based was a huge plus for us. We are located in 5 different regions of the province, with our provincial office located just in the Edmonton area, but we service that provincial office services those 5 other regions. And so it was getting very difficult to make sure we got the data and the information out to our employees, as well as the information back, because it relied on having a specific computer for an employee that the data, the information, or the system had to be loaded onto to get that. Now, with the revolution of that 365, we were able to access it at any computer. We've got it on our phones. We're able to do basic work on our phones or our iPads. So it's been just revolutionary for us that we've been able to move across, as well as it attaches to our Power BI and our reporting system, which is just so dynamic and so supportive to everything we need to achieve. So we've gone from a system where we had 4 different systems we had to utilize, people doing hours and hours of work in order to get a report, to seamless reporting. It doesn't always get us everything, but it gets us to a point where we have 99% of our data to be able to report to our funders, to be able to report to our supporting community, to be able to report to our board, and then back to our employees. And our employees are doing a lot of the work rather than our staff in just the back end entering a whole bunch of paperwork. Our employees are at the front. The end users are doing all the work to enter their data, which then is more accurate because it's them entering it. Right. So right. I think I probably might have gone off a bit. I'm hoping I answered most of your question.
That's very good. I guess just maybe to summarize, your experience was you started with the original version of Sparkrock, which was based on older technology, and it depended on you being able to install some software on a particular user's PC. And right along with Microsoft, what we've done is we've migrated from that model to what's known, of course, as the cloud, and all that requires is a browser. So it's not dependent on a particular device. So as long as you have a browser, you can use the system. I'm just wondering, Janice, maybe for like 2 minutes, can just for everyone's benefit, can you describe what Rehoboth does and the mandate that you have, just so that we have some context about some of the questions we're going to talk about in terms of how you're actually using the software.
Right. So Rehoboth supports individuals with developmental disabilities. We are funded by the government of Alberta through Community and Social Services, and we provide the services in 5 different regions of our province. So we have group homes and day programs located in those 5 regions. And so we have 600 employees who have to complete their time entry and do their all of that information on they confirm and approve their shifts every day, and so that supervisors can see their shifts. They have exposure to the schedules, and that's the biggest component, that schedule or time entry. We've used both. However, scheduling is just so much better. It's so much more. It attaches to our absences. It allows our employees to take their time off, which is meeting the expectation of employment standards to make sure they're taking all the time they need to. So we deliver those services in the 5 different. We're in the South region, we're in Calgary, we're in the Central region, Edmonton, and Northwest. Without having the availability to do this, we would be using fax machines, time entry, people driving yes. to offices to drop off timesheets, and yeah. So yeah. I hope, is that enough?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
so actually, just building on that, the time entry piece, the scheduling piece. Of course, at the time that you actually started your conversation with Sparkrock, that functionality did not exist within Sparkrock. And can you comment in terms of your experience? One of the things, of course, that we're trying to strive with Sparkrock is to develop software that we can basically make a product. We didn't want to make a product just for Rehoboth. We obviously wanted to take your input. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah, so we started with, when we started with Sparkrock, we did start with time entry and attendance. And we had spoken with them and worked with them to talk about what processes we needed to have in place and what availability our supervisors needed in order to meet the expectations of employment standards of our funder. And so with that, Sparkrock took the information and they helped to develop a scheduling module that would meet all of our needs. And it is integrated with HR, payroll, and finance, which then they can speak to each other. So once we get the data and we process payroll, now because of the scheduling component, we're able to then pull the information into payroll. That information then gets translated to our finance department, which then populates our general ledgers for all of our cost centers and such like that, because everything is coded to a dimension code, which helps to speak to everything we need to answer back in our financial system. So everything speak to each other, and it helps to keep it all in the right order. So
yes. Janice, can you talk a little bit about the effect of this integration has had on your business? And I'm thinking now more of you mentioned that you're putting the data entry effectively in the hands of the people that are actually doing the work. So to me, that implies that you could have more of those people and not necessarily have more of people like yourself. In other words, more back office people. Can you talk about what effect a system like this has had in terms of how you've been able to grow your business?
right. So we've been able to reduce employees in our payroll department and in our finance department. We've been able to make them just the processors of data and not trying to analyze anything or figure anything out. So what's happened is our front end or our end users are able to enter all of the data, and then that gets just brought into the system. And when we need to process payroll, the payroll processor just completes it. Now, we used to have 2 employees in our finance department. We've been able to go down to 1, which has helped us to keep our costs down. Because also, in addition to we have end users, we have a system called a limited manager component that helps us to have those employees or supervisors or managers who have a little bit of the back end access. And so they can, as part of their regular job, they can enter some of the data we need to have entered rather than, and that relates to them. They only see what relates to them, and then they can enter it and it's accurate because they're the ones that are doing it. And we're not trying to analyze or figure anything out. They're putting it in, we're then processing it. And we just have to process, which makes it just that much easier for our back end.
Yeah, Janice, that's actually a common theme that we hear from many Sparkrock users, and that theme is that in a lot of ways, what our system is about is spend management. It's helping the organization do a better job of making sure that the dollars that are coming in from funders and so forth, making sure they're going to the appropriate places, and doing it in such a way that it's not taking extra time to actually post and collect and then report back to the actual manager. So what you're referring to is we have a Sparkrock user type called manager, and that manager user not only has the ability to do time entry and so on, but they also have the ability to initiate purchase requests or payment requests. And as such, once again, going back to my question, this I think has had probably a pretty good impact on your ability to grow your organization without having to have your finance department grow alongside it. In other words, you can add more resources in the field where your constituents truly need it, and not have to add a whole bunch of back office people to support them.
That's correct, as well as when you talked about doing purchase orders and stuff like that, our managers are now able to do HR requests. So when we're hiring employees, they're able to do that, and we have not had to increase our component of our provincial grouping. Even though our employees have grown, we haven't had to increase the number of support staff that we have.
Okay.
But not to mention that when we talked about some of the things that we were able to do was pivot and adjust or adapt with COVID, and we all experienced COVID and we had
Yes.
that issue. We were able to pivot and change on a dime because we were on scheduling already. I had other service providers doing similar work to me at the beginning of COVID, and they were in a mess. They had people driving across cities, across districts to get timesheets picked up to pay their employees. We never dropped the ball once. Our first payroll after COVID started, where everybody all of a sudden was at home, we were able to deliver it in the timeline we were, and it was fantastic. So things like that, where you have no idea what's coming at you, and natural disasters happen, we are able to still make sure, because let's be honest, our employees come to work because they love their job, absolutely.
Yes.
But they come to work because they need to get paid and they need to pay their bills. So we're making sure that this helps us to make sure that that is possible.
Yeah.
So
So in a sense, Janice, you're justifying, I guess is the right word, that the whole promise of what cloud computing is about. It's no longer this requirement that you're going to have a PC with software loaded on it to in order to do your job. And moreover, it's actually, as you were saying, it's putting data entry in the hands of the people that are actually doing the work.
absolutely.
And so you've already alluded to this. Perhaps you can elaborate a little more, just in terms of the timeliness of being able to do your reporting. And I'm thinking now, for a lot of our customers, a lot of organizations in the nonprofit sector, a big part of their responsibility is that they're getting this funding and they have to report back. And we all know how that goes. And if you're late or you're inaccurate, you put that funding potentially at risk. So can you talk a little bit about the benefit of having that integrated system, and specifically in terms of time entry and scheduling, what that means in terms of how reporting is now done as compared to what it was before Sparkrock?
Yeah, so like I had said before, we used to do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs to get our data and used Excel in order to do it. Now, with the Power BI and the reports that come from the system, we are able to complete financial analysis as well as reporting to our funders within a 2-month period, which is huge. It's fast. It seems like it's slow, but let me give you an example. We just had to do a board report in October, and we normally would only, at October, we would normally only have until the end of June, the first quarter, April, May, and June. We would only have until the end of June to be able to report to our board in October. Now, we just presented to the end of August to our board in October, which was a month and a week after that close of that month. That is huge. And it's because everything that is put into the system is there immediately. We're able to pull out, we've done systems called a Power Query along with Power BI in order to pull out those financial reports and have them completed for us. So we're looking at the moment in time, we have everything up to date, as opposed to waiting 3 or 4 months that we used to wait. And our board was so impressed this time as the data and the level of exposure we had to give to them this time. So it was amazing.
Yeah, so just thinking back once again to before Sparkrock, if you had to contrast how much time it took you then till now, is that measured in weeks? Is it measured in months?
It's months. It used to take us, well, and because our finance manager used to have to pull the data from our old payroll system, and then they would have to upload it in an upload in order to get the payroll information in. Now it can be, so payroll's posted on, say, Thursday, and Thursday afternoon our finance manager can be looking at that posting right in the system, whereas before it would be posted in the one system. She'd have to go get it, she'd have to pull it, she'd have to upload it, and there was no level of exposure to a dimension code. So in the system now, we can see that in this unit, in this group home, we have these number of hours that are coded and funded to that. We can give you every dime right down to the individual, because can be coded right down to the individual level of people we're supporting, that then can go back to our funder, which we never had before. It was this data dump of information that went from the old system into our financial system, which didn't give us the exposure of data we have now.
Yeah, for sure. So Janice, I'm going to take you slightly off topic. So one of the things that we often hear from prospective customers is that they're currently having a payroll service. They're not running payroll in-house. And there's of course a perception that bringing payroll in-house is more of a burden than just letting an external organization handle it. And I think some of the things you were commenting on, I think that sort of speaks to, maybe you can elaborate, that sort of speaks to the benefit of having payroll in-house, if we could put it that way, and part of an integrated system. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. And I want to speak to the fact that how much time we used to use, even doing it internally. We used to start payroll on Monday morning, and it would go until Thursday at the last moment we possibly could in order to get it to the bank. So 3 o'clock usually on Thursday afternoon. So it was 4 days of full time doing payroll in our old system, and even to some extent in the 2016 system. In nav sorry, in Sparkrock 365 now, we start payroll on Monday. We do the finish. All the employees we have until midnight on Monday to finish entering of their data, and then on Tuesday, by Tuesday evening, 99% of the time we have finished payroll. So
Wow.
payroll is actually processed in-house in 24 hours.
So much
And
faster than a service.
oh, absolutely. And we have the exposure of the understanding of the people we support and the staff. We have that relationship with them. So we're not getting, if we don't have something or we don't understand what they tried to put into the system, we can instantly go back to them and get an answer. Whereas the payroll service would just process. They don't understand that. Or we have somebody who didn't get paid right the proper way because their supervisor didn't approve a time. We then will instantly do another payroll run to make sure that employee gets paid, and they will not be late on getting that posted. So we can run as many payrolls as we need to if we had somebody who is missed. And it doesn't take, when it's a smaller run, like we're doing the run for 600 employees, right? And so that takes us the day. You can imagine how much quicker 2 or 3 people or whatever got missed or were wrong or we had to adjust, and we can do that in a moment. And one of our goals at Rehoboth was at one time in the old system, we were doing up to 4 or 5 different runs in a pay period. Our goal was to go down to 1 run in a pay period, and that was where we set our internal goal. 95% of the time, we're at 1 run per pay period. So, and that's because of the training and the education that we have to give to our employees. And it hasn't been that much. Sparkrock has been able to provide us with training videos and information to give to our employees of how to access my Sparkrock, how to utilize it, how to make the best of it. And our biggest issue is secondary internet service. That is the one that is slow on us because we can't control what internet people have. And so sometimes the speed of that is slower, but it's not the system's fault. It's just because of, slowness of a internet provider.
And of course, that will get solved with time. I mean, we all know
it only gets better.
Yes, that's
if anything
right.
that COVID has brought us, it's brought us that because
Yes,
people have demanded that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just for the audience, some points of clarification. So Janice a couple of times has referred to Sparkrock 2016. So to give everyone some context, we Sparkrock have been doing this, serving the nonprofit sector since 2003. And Janice is referring to the product that just came just before we actually moved to the cloud. And some of you may know from perhaps looking us up on our website, what we do is we like to think we're giving you the best of both worlds. We follow in lockstep what Microsoft does. Everything that Sparkrock 365 offers is based on the Microsoft platform. And as Microsoft moves forward with their technology, we follow in lockstep. And then what we do as Sparkrock, this is the part of the best of both worlds, is what we do as Sparkrock is we offer that perspective of the nonprofit. Janice has given us some great examples of that, particularly as it relates to the topic today, which is time entry and scheduling. That's a very specific requirement that a nonprofit would have. And Janice has spoken to some of those things, the timeliness of the data, the fact that the actual employee is entering the data, the fact that their manager is able to approve it, and the downstream effect of that on someone like Janice, who's in the finance department, is, as you've heard, is pretty significant. So I wonder, Janice, can you talk a little bit too about some of the other benefits that you've gotten because of being in the cloud? And I'm thinking now, just in terms of onboarding employees and what's involved in actually getting them working with the software. Can you talk about that in contrast to what it was prior to actually being truly cloud-based?
Yeah, so we're able to get an employee online as soon as they're signed up. So there's no interruption or waiting for anything. And they're able to approve and confirm their shifts right away. So as soon as they're logged on to the system by our HR administrators, then they are able to log on and see the schedule of the homes that they are assigned to. And that's huge because that helps them to be able to bid for different shifts. And so anytime a vacant shift is available in a program in which the person is registered with on the schedule, then they're able to see the whole schedule that's available and bid on extra shifts. So that helps to reduce the time that our supervisors spend on the phone talking to employees, trying to get them to work shifts. I mean, that has been a huge time saver, that the employees then take the initiative of looking for extra shifts, and then the supervisor not having to track people down. The only time we go back to the old fashioned phone and calling people is that, somebody calls in sick right away and you have to get somebody in there for 3 o'clock and it's, 2 o'clock now, right?
Yeah.
But that's been huge. The other thing that you spoke about, and no, I'll come back to it because I don't remember I had something I wanted to say and I should have written it down. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. I was. Can you also talk, Janice? You mentioned at the very top about how this cloud-based system is also available on a mobile device. In terms of once again the theme today, which is time entry and scheduling, how does that mobility? I presume that's impacted as well, just in terms of a lower barrier to someone actually being able to use the application.
Absolutely. So it's available. So my Sparkrock, the end user component that people would fill in their schedule on and stuff like that, it's available on the browser online. But also there's an app available with the backend user that they're able to access the basic components of what they would see on their homepage on the Sparkrock 365 site. And so that has made it so like I could do an HR request to get somebody hired on my phone if I was out of the office and not available to a computer. I can approve that. I can advance it. Any of my HR people can advance those HR requests to make sure that somebody is hired, and get them into the system so then they can get their access to my Sparkrock and then start filling in their shifts and applying for other shifts. So that seamless ability to do your work anywhere you are from any device that you're on is just it's such a time saver for the organization. The other thing is, I did remember the other thing I wanted to speak of is that Rehoboth has been a proponent of making sure that we only use the system as it works out of the box. That is huge, and I can't stress that enough. It's all well and fine to have customization because an agency does something this way and they want it this way. But we made the decision when we went with Sparkrock in 2016 to stick with out of the box because, for one thing, it was cheaper. You didn't have to pay for
Yes,
customizations,
yes.
right?
Yep, definitely.
And then the system works as the system is supposed to. The system is designed in a certain way, and if we were going to throw customizations in there, then the one time that we did throw a customization, it messed up 3 or 4 other functions, and it was so frustrating. They were able to fix it and get it back in place for us, but we have been committed to being out of the box service, and out of the box is enough. It is good.
Yes.
So don't feel that. I think that a lot of people feel that they have to have it the way they've had it. But when we made the switch to Sparkrock, we made the decision to let the system run us so that we have less human intervention. And that's been our motto, is to get human intervention out of any process we're doing and let the system do it.
Yep. Well, Janice, that's a very good point. One of the things that we like to suggest, with all due modesty, is that because we've been doing this now for almost 20 years, and the fact that the relationship we have with you is common, not to trivialize our relationship, of course, but it's common with all our customers in that we take suggestions from everyone and we reflect that back into the product that we're offering. And in that sense, with all due modesty, we like to think our application represents a best practice. And so, to your point, when you're contemplating an implementation of a system like this, which is of course not a daunting, it is a daunting thing, I should say. knowing that in a sense you've got something to blame for the change that you're about to introduce. We're doing it this way because this system is representing best practices, and that's why we're going to stop doing that process the way we've been doing it. We're going to do it this way because the system is designed to do it this way.
Yeah.
And the benefit, as you're suggesting, of course, is that not only in terms of cost, naturally, but the implication in terms of you're being able to migrate, for example, from the old version, the much older technology to the browser based. And maybe you can even talk a little bit about that. And because it was out of the box, I'm fairly seamless, correct?
Yeah, that was correct. We only had two customizations that had to be dealt with when we moved in and we migrated over to 365, which made the back end process of that switch just so much easier. We had to learn the new system, of course, but with everything, there's learning in, right? So it just made it seamless for the transition.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, Janice, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to sit tight. We're going to open up for questions, but first, just to give people some context around some of the things that we've talked about in terms of the functionality available in Sparkrock 365. Sherry, I'm gonna throw it to you to take us through just a very brief overview of the application and give our viewers a sense of what we've been talking about in terms of the look and feel.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you, John. You have to excuse me, I'm not on my camera today, but I want to make sure that I had enough bandwidth so I don't get any delay. I am working from my home office. Sherry Hashimoto, let me know when you see I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you can see the self-service screen.
Yep, all good, Sherry.
Okay. For those of you that are already using part of the cloud solution that Sparkrock offers and are familiar with self-service, this is a pared down portion of it just for all your employees, because everybody is an employee. For those of you that have never seen it, we've simplified it because if you want to make sure that your users come out and use it, but there isn't as much pushback nowadays that everybody has a cell phone that does everything else. So the transition is quite easy. But your users would come out here, your scheduled users, you'll see that there's an area, a menu for scheduling. But over to the right-hand side top, if you need people to clock in and clock out, we offer a web time clock function as well. So you may have individuals where you want them to clock in, clock out. We can also interface to, if you already have a clocking system, too, but to give you that option. So you're an employee or your employees could come out here and simply look at their schedule. And the schedule, in this case, for this employee shows that they work Monday and Thursdays, the times that they work, right? What they will be doing, and they're just regular hours. Now you'll notice this employee here has a couple different times. There's also available a calendar view. So in this case, if they want to see when they're working for the month of October, they work Monday, Thursday, every other week. Okay, so ease of just being able to see. Now, if they want to drill down and to see exactly, you can add if it's a different location or there are some comments that you want to make or additional guideline details for them, you can. Also, if they need to call somebody, okay, you can add contact information as well. Right, so this gives just a little bit more detail. Going back to the list view of my schedule, you'll notice that this employee has already reviewed and approved this time because it's in the past. So just by clicking and advancing the date, they can see the next time that they're working. You'll also notice in the top up left here, Janice mentioned that they have employees that are staffed in numerous locations, right? So you can have that as well here too. And your employees would only see the locations where they can be scheduled. In addition to that, if they want to come out here to confirm when they work. It's simply a matter of reviewing. They can cut if they worked a little longer, they just need to click on that shift, make adjustments to that changes. If they did something else, you can show it so that if they had an added activity, maybe they were working on another program, they could add that too. All this would go directly when they confirm it to their manager for review and approval as well. And then once the manager approves it, it's available in payroll. So it's just as simple as sending this for confirmation and review. Now, from a scheduler standpoint, you have your person who sees all the employees that are scheduled to work. So again, here you have a list. This is the particular location, okay? The date and time, and again, that calendar view is available as well. So they can come out here and you look at the calendar. They can specifically look at a day if that's their preference, and to see. And you'll notice the colors. We like to draw your attention to what needs well, in this case, the vacancies that need to be filled. So there you can scroll down and see the vacancies, or you can simply come up to the top here on the upper left and say, where are my vacant positions for this particular schedule? So when you go into a vacancy, in this case, this is for a driver, you can add comments to that. And it's just saying, okay, well, let's see. You can either fill it or offer. For the offer, what the system will go out and do for you is only show you who's available to work and who is a driver. So if you're working in, say, a health and human services, if you're in a nursing environment where you need 24/7 staffing, but they have to have specific qualifications, it can accommodate that. If you have nonprofits like a rec center or something where you need qualified, say you have a pool, lifeguards, it will also do that and bring up initially only the people that are qualified. Now, if you notice that Ramon, this gives you a summary of what they've worked so far, and Ramon has worked the least amount of hours. You can pop this open and see what exactly Ramon has worked. And if Janice mentioned sometimes people call in sick, this also has contact information. So if you need to pick up the phone and contact them, you can do so easily without having to go anywhere else, because that information is right there. So you're able to quickly, if you want to just say, okay, I want to offer Ramon this, and then what Ramon will see is a notification. Probably most people get them on their cell phone, but I'm going to take you over to Outlook here. So here is an example of a bid notice that what it looks like in email. Here's if you allow your employees, shift employees to also trade, notifications that would come for approval. Okay. These are just samples of what it would look like. So you can come out here and review it. But it's all tied into, again, on that Microsoft platform.
So Sherry, just one more thing I noticed on when you had that driver request up there, it does allow you to choose. So for situations for human services, we might have qualified employees that need to work in a certain program, but because we have nobody else to work right now, we're going to search for untrained employees or non-trained employees. There's a box you can click off for other employees who work in the organization, and that you could look at offering that shift to, so you can show that, nope, right below that, Right below that, you just click off show non-trained, and then it can show, well, right now there aren't any non-trained, but you can click that off. And for all of our programs, we have it set up so it'll show everybody. And then you can look at somebody who might have worked at the program, but not be a regular employee at that program. So it's just another function. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to show that because it's really important one for us.
Yeah,
You guys use
really
it
does
day
make
in and day out. So I thank you.
Yeah, it does make a great point too about the benefit of a fully integrated system, because the HR system is tracking all the information about who's been trained and who has certifications and so on, and being able to link that back into scheduling, as we're seeing here. Once again, the impact on an organization in terms of an efficiency perspective is significant.
Right.
Yeah.
And the tie-in for employee self-services, for those of you that use this already, if when they have an attendance request, if they ask for time off and they're a scheduled employee, it will update once that time off is approved. It'll update the schedule as well. So that if you need a shift filled, it will show you, who's on vacation. Also, John mentioned the training unit. If you have people that have to go out for training, you can see who's out for training. It'll impact the schedule as well. So no one has to come out here and manually keep these up to date, right? You can see what it is. And you can see right now that here's an example of an offer that went out for Ramon. If I come down here further, remember I mentioned you can use the clock in, clock out. And you'll notice Pedro here is also a driver, but he forgot to clock out. And it's as simple as either having Pedro correct it, right? Come back in and correct it before you approve the time, or you can simply input the time for them. If it's other than what they were scheduled for, you can also incorporate that too. The other reason that it's nice to have people on a schedule is, for example, at the top here, Maria Sharma, maybe she gets a paid holiday. Instead of having your employees have to enter in, the time, you can have it default in, so that all they have to do is say, yep, I worked 2 hours, it was on holiday pay, and when I did work later that night, I am paid the shift differential. That's incorporated. And then in addition to that, it's all tied back, as Janice mentioned, to finance, right? So when Maria's pay is processed through payroll, it's going to all the correct places that it needs to go in the finance journals, and being applied against the appropriate funds. Let's see. Any questions so far? Okay.
There's actually a couple of come in, Sherry, but let's leave it open.
Okay. So when you're ready, as the person manning the shifts and looking at it to approve, you can also come out here and see whose shifts have been approved. It's a little like Christmas, and Pedro here has partially approved some of his, so it's very visual. You can either do this by person, you can do it by position, and it tells you, who has done what, who's worked, who's not clocked, and who's been working overtime. So now, as far as creating these, it would be a pared down, but you can come out here and you would start with just setting up schedules. How do you want to control? Okay, where are you going to have schedules? All the locations that you have. You can set up different schedule areas, right? So if you have, like Janice has, several different areas, and then you can pare that down by the units in those areas. So you have the area code, and you can have several actual locations within each one of those areas, and they can be subjected to different qualifications. So maybe you allow trading in some of those locations, and maybe you don't, and maybe there's more, you allow more days. So there are controls around this that you can incorporate, and when you finally set the basics up, you set up with establishing scheduling templates. So if you have schedulers out there, a lot of them use Excel right now, spreadsheet type. So we designed this so that it isn't a far stretch from what they're using now, where this allows you to either, you can open this in Excel and then import it back in, but it is an Excel spreadsheet format. You can have a schedule in any, whether you have weekly, whether you have 2 weeks, whether you have rotating shifts, that can all be done in here. And that, I think my time is up for just a brief overlook of not only what your end users would see and how they would manage that, but how it would also be built in the application itself. All right, John.
All right, very good, Sherry. Thank you very much for that. We do want to take some time now. It's just coming up to 10 minutes before the hour. If anyone has any questions, a couple have come in, but I'll just open it up if anyone has a specific question. Otherwise, I'll go to the ones that a couple have come in. All right, so Janice, we have a question here. A couple of times we've referred to, and Sherry just touched on it just now. I think this is probably best answered by you. There's some questions about what does that Microsoft integration mean? What does that actually look like? Like, is maybe you can just elaborate on the experience that your users are having between Office 365 and Sparkrock 365. And we should probably talk a little bit too about Power BI and what that means as part of all that equation. Oh, Janice, you're muted.
And I said that was a great question. Great question. So it has made it so that our supervisors, our staff go to one place. All of our staff have that Microsoft account. And by clicking on the top left-hand corner, there's those 9 tiles. They can get anywhere in the system they need to get to. And so there's not a lot of, oh, you got to go to this system. No, you got to go to this system. And so it's made it so much easier for our employees because we were using so many different systems before in the past, and less frustration. And just because Microsoft is all in the same format, it all looks the same, they don't have to get used to something else. When they're on the spreadsheet, like it was just shown, Sherry just showed us about putting that template in there. It looks like a Microsoft or an Excel spreadsheet. It's nothing new for people to get used to the view of. The other thing is, what was the other part of the question? Oh, Power BI.
Yes.
Power BI has, we used to use Jet reports, and there was nothing wrong with Jet reports. It's just that you had to, it wasn't part of the component of Microsoft. And so with having Power BI as our reporting component, we have been able to we have 20 different reports that we use on a regular basis, telling our shifts, so that supervisors can look at those compared to what are budgeted so they can stay on track for that budget. Attendance reports, what's missing, what hasn't been confirmed, what hasn't been approved. Instead of having to go to every single schedule, they can go to these shift reports and then see what's been confirmed and what's been approved on timesheet day, get that done, and it's so simple for them. They can see employees' wages only for the people that they're responsible for. We've got filters and security on it so that not everybody can see everything. There's just a wealth. Anything that you want in a report, Power BI can create. And I have started, like, we have an expert, Sparkrock has an expert that has walked me through the process. And now I've gotten to the point that now I can make my own Power BI reports. Once you learn it's very similar to if statements in Excel. And as long as you understand that concept, you can create Power BI code. It's so simple. It's the beginner's course for coding, I think, with
Yes.
Power BI. Yeah.
Yes, and just for clarity, Power BI, of course, is a Microsoft product that's often available as part of your Office 365 license, depending on what license structure you have with Microsoft.
Right. And we did pay the extra money, but it's so nominal. Like, it's $4 per person. Like, it's so nominal, but so beneficial. Like, if I didn't have it, I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
So
Janice, we're also getting some questions around change management, and I think the context is we've referred to the fact that, in a sense, what we've done with this application and the fact that it's cloud-based and all you need is a browser, we've democratized the access to the system. We've made it possible for someone who's a shift worker to actually be responsible for their own data entry, and we've given the ability for a manager to do the things that they need to do from an approval process. Can you talk a little bit of what that was like in terms of implementing the system, the changes that you were bringing to the organization? Did people resist? Did they embrace it? It was a little bit of both.
It was a little bit of both. We definitely had supervisors that embraced it because it meant that they didn't have to run between programs to just get the timesheets. The time saved was huge for the supervisors. The resistance came from the employees who just had a piece of paper in front of them and could sign that they did from 10 to 4 and they did their shift, that they had to learn how to use computers. But with the evolution of everybody needing to use computers now, I think people have gotten used to the point where there's just no getting away from it. We all are evolving to computer use. In some format. You do your banking on computers, you get emails, you get people on Facebook. And the benefit of having Microsoft as our partner is just, like I've said before, it's not anything different than people have been used to for the last 10 years. Word, Outlook, Excel, it's all integrated into Sparkrock 365. And we're not looking at something different. It's very friendly in that respect. So that made the change so much easier, that it was something that people were used to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And once again, for us at Sparkrock, that's part of that best of both worlds proposition that we like to make. You're getting the benefit of the ubiquity, the commonness of Microsoft. It's available. Everybody uses it. Everybody knows how Outlook looks. Everybody uses Excel or Word or both. And having that experience transferred to your financial, HR, and payroll system, as you're suggesting, it just lowers that barrier to bringing in a new system that's fully integrated, that gives you the ability to have a tighter control over that overall spend that you're doing as an organization.
Absolutely. And because everybody in our organization had an email account with Rehoboth, with our company, we were able to tie any of our communication we do through Sparkrock through that system. So we know that our employees are getting those bid requests, are getting those change requests, are getting their absences approved. It goes, and a notice goes about an absence, goes to the supervisor. A notice then goes back to the employee that says your supervisor approved it. So there's no guessing to whether or not you got your time off approved or anything like that. The system sends those emails and you don't have to worry about stuff. And so that helped the adoption because people started to get communication directly from the system also.
Fantastic. All right, well, I'm just noticing that we're coming up now to the top of the hour. I'll offer one last opportunity to ask questions of Janice. I think everybody's taking in everything you had to say, Janice. Going once. All right, everyone. On behalf of Sparkrock and Janice, I want to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We would encourage you, if you would like a copy of this session, we can make that recording available to you. And of course, we would welcome any questions you have about what you heard today. And Janice, I hope I'm not taking too much of a liberty, but if anyone wanted to reach out directly to Janice and find out more, I'm sure Janice said, yeah, okay,
absolutely.
Very good. Yeah, that'd be great too. So if any of you would like to get in touch with Janice and find out more about her experiences, and as you've heard, she's got a lot of experience, broadly speaking, in terms of work in a public sector organization, and obviously specifically in terms of implementing systems like this. So with that, I'll thank everyone very much for your time this afternoon. And especially thank you very much for your interest in Sparkrock. Have a good afternoon.